my family's legacy in history and how much they've invested their time and effort.
Meet Udbhav Agarwal, a key figure at Punit Creations. For decades, they've been at the heart of garment manufacturing in India, evolving from global exports to mastering the domestic market. Now, hear Udbhav's expert insights on the fashion industry's intricate supply chains.
What actually happens for a garment to go from a factory to the floor?
Seeding, cotton farming, ginning, spinning, and the textile part is very capital intensive, a lot of machinery. But with garmenting, everything is laborious.
I feel if brands connect or create stories within their brand that connects with their audience, they will succeed.
Jeans that are washed in Mumbai versus the ones that are washed in Bangalore have a very different hand feel.
Just because of the water?
Just because of the water.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode of Beyond Basics. We have a very special guest with us today, Udbhav Agarwal from Punit Creation, one of the biggest manufacturers. Let's welcome Udbhav.
Hi Damin, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. This is our third episode and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you all about the fashion industry, supply chains. Even before this conversation, going through the factory, I have learned already so much. It's been amazing. So I'm hoping we can share a lot of that with the audience. Where are we right now exactly?
So we're in our manufacturing facility in Bangalore. This is a facility that manufactures both shirts and trousers. We manufacture a lot of different products for a lot of different brands domestically. Punit Creation is a 36-year-old company. We are sort of large-scale garment manufacturers. We've been in operations since 1990. We built a strong foundation and we were quite export heavy till I would say 2012, 2013. After which sort of the domestic industry in India was so strong that we pivoted completely from export to domestic. And we started servicing some of the largest sort of volume providers in menswear. We service brands like Arvind, Raymond's, Indian Terrain, Rare Rabbit, XYZ.
What are the brands that Arvind has?
So Arvind has a lot of beautiful brands, US Polo being there. Then they have Arrow and Flying Machine.
You mentioned exports. This was pre-2013?
Yes.
So which are the brands you were exporting for?
So we used to do all the large brands. We used to do all the PVH brands, so CK, Tommy.
Oh, wow.
We used to do Stradivarius, which is Inditex, Zara. So we used to work with all these large format stores and do huge production runs. However, somewhere with the rise of global competition and cheap labor in pools like Vietnam and Bangladesh, it became unsustainable for us to compete. At the same time, the rise of the Indian sort of consumption story in the domestic markets was so strong that we just found it easier to pivot.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself. I feel you have a passion for history.
I learned from history. If we don't know where we're coming from, we can never project where we're going. It's important to own your identity.
I think for a long time, the world looked upon us very negatively.
But that's changed. And a lot of it has also got to do with the fact that we don't know who we are.
I mean, I think India is now starting to figure out, it's only been, 60, 80 years of independence. The world is much smaller than it used to be. We have data and information and education accessible at our fingertips. I think we can start to be a little bit more empathetic towards each other.
I mean, the journey with empathy starts with yourself. And when you start asking yourself, okay, why am I the way I am? Why am I the color I am? Why am I speaking this language? That self-realization journey is what got me into history. That's where I started questioning a lot of things and just finding my own answers.
Where did you study?
So I did my undergrad in Florida and then my postgraduate was in London.
And school was in Bombay?
Schooling, yes. Born and brought up Mumbai through and through. So I did a econ statistics comp-sci degree, really opened my mind up to a lot of things. Realized my family's legacy in history and how much they've invested their time and effort.
You realize this when you go abroad. I also didn't realize it until I went abroad and I was away for them for a prolonged period of time that I came to realize what my parents had built was right. Just, when you're in it, you don't realize it.
The question of passion goes away and duty comes in.
Duty comes in to an extent, but you also just, I don't know, it's just this appreciation for what they've built. You understand that this was not very easy to build.
Yep. And that's when you take it upon yourself to take it to the next step. So that's when I decided to come back. I had a job lined up as well. Ran the factory for a few years, set up a few buyers, did well, got into a very technical university and got a very technical degree and had an opportunity and went there and did really well. To be true to my generations and to do right by it. Whether I fail or not, whether I succeed is secondary. But to know that I gave it my all.
I think that's where the challenge lies. Like, at least what I used to think is I don't want to sit there in my deathbed and think I never tried. I try to put that thought away for a long time. If I was like dying, I would regret that I never even tried.
And that's what drove me to go to the UK and keep in touch with my passions, right? We're not binary creatures. Life is fluid. We live on a very big spectrum.
Yeah.
So you got to be open to, it's not just all in or nothing. Yes, I live by the attitude still, but you got to encourage and, all sorts of passions within you. That's why I went back, studied my bit, and did very well actually. Now it's just a matter of building this out. The goal is very much to see, the way I see the natural evolution of my industries, everything is primary, secondary, tertiary. So primary, if I was to break it down in the supply chain, is the cotton farming. Secondary is the production of the garment, and tertiary is the retail. So I have to take that step of secondary to tertiary and build the brand out so that I'm able to feed my own factories to some level. So I'm able to ride by my workers, because when the wages rise, I need to be able to adjust the cost and pay them equally well.
As a retailer, we know that overheads have only increased every year.
1,200,
Electricity.
so the wages are going up 1,200 in 2 months again.
So that's going to again increase the price of the goods, which then again gets passed on to the consumer.
Somewhere that understanding has come in that if we have to grow as an economy, our labor has to make money so that they can spend as well. The mass markets, the 80% of people consuming below 1,300 need to move upstream and come to the 2,500 mark. How that plays out on a balancing wheel, that Zudio comes up, becomes more expensive itself, or somewhere the mid-premium brands come down and meet them in the middle. How that plays out, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know how that's going to play out, but if they move up, they also consume more.
More. And that enables more production, and it's a circle.
And that gets the economy going.
Good.
What actually happens for a garment to go from a factory to the floor? Would you explain some of the things, at least from the manufacturing side?
Think about it from the cotton seed all the way to a finished woven garment that you pick up in the retail counter. The beauty is that seed to finished product, touching lakhs of hands and enriching a million lives on the way, costs in a Zudio 900, 600, in a premium brand like a US Polo, 3,000, 2,000, in someone like a Zara, 3,000 maybe. You're enriching millions of lives with that one purchase. Garmenting is the most labor-dense part of the industry. Seeding, cotton farming, ginning, spinning, and the textile part is very capital-intensive. There's a lot of machinery involved, less labor. But with garmenting, everything is laborious. Fabric comes in, it's inspected by a human here, where they sit and they've been trained over years to look at various defects. So they look at the fabric before it's even cut. They look for defects, they look for color shading, they look for things. After that, it's gone to the cutting floor where a person skillfully lays it out and then marks it and cuts it. Yes, there is technology that's come in, but for the buyer's eye service, I told you, the breadth first, depth less. So I can't implement these technologies here. Right?
Because those technologies are all about bulk.
All about scale, all about standardization. Fashion's never standard, right?
No, it is not standard.
It's not standard. That's what fashion is meant to be. Everything is personalized. And then there is a complete production line of 40 skilled tailors who sit there, hand stitch each piece together to create this garment, after which it's washed. Now, the beauty here is, again, there's variability in this process, in that when the fabric comes in, the rolls are inspected for shrinkage. So let's say if it's a 2x2, that means if the garment width, the finished garment width, just for example, has to be 1 meter by 1 meter, I'm going to cut that panel to be 1.02 and 1.02. So when I wash it, it's going to become 1 by 1. Now, there's so much that can happen in the wash procedure, everything from a little bit of residual moisture in the washing drum to the water hardness being a bit stronger, because Bangalore has more ferrous content in the water, it's hard water.
If you move this factory from Bangalore to, let's say, Mysore, it would change because of the water.
Yes, the shrinkage dynamics actually would change, So the fun fact with jeans that are washed in Mumbai versus the ones that are washed in Bangalore have a very different hand feel.
Oh, wow. Just because of the water?
Just because of the water. There's so much that goes into garmenting and such a beauty to it, and such a labor-intensive process. Look, at the end of the day, you're managing a team of 1,000 people per factory, give or take, in-house.
So this is providing a lot of jobs to people.
A lot of jobs. And when you purchase the garment for the 800 rupees, you're enriching these lives. You're allowing me to do right by them. So the consumership means a lot downstream. And that's really where the beauty is. Not a lot of retailers really know what goes into the supply chain on the back end. As we were very jokingly talking about the marketing point of handmade, as you clearly saw, in this industry, everything is handmade. It warms my heart to see someone come in and really take a look under the skirt. So
I've seen some brands online that say handcrafted, which is what you said. After I looked at the supply chain or the factory, everything is handcrafted.
Yeah, no,
What is
everything
not handcrafted?
So garmenting is a very difficult industry to manage. I was listening to this podcast, the What the Fuck podcast with Nikhil Kamath, and Mr. Birla was on there. And he was also mentioning how him being involved in the garmenting and textile verticals where he really learned the art of management is because it is labor dense and it is such a variable industry that to control the variability and sort of hit your targets is where you learn how to manage people and the art of sort of negotiation and management in general. Textiles is a huge history with India. We are one of the oldest nations that have been exporting cotton throughout the world, throughout the planet. And somewhere over the years, I would say a post-colonial hangover as well, we've lost our identity. And as India is sort of coming to the limelight and we're growing again, it's good to see all the suppressed facts and the beauty of a supply chain coming to the forefront.
Are we still exporting a lot of cotton?
Not as much anymore. We are the third largest. The US is number 2 and China is number 1. Chinese cotton is questionable in terms of sustainability practices.
Okay.
The US cotton is definitely more superior in terms of its staple length. But Indian cotton has a softness unlike anything.
Is there a reason for this? Why Indian cotton is soft?
Our climate, our soil and just
tropical weather.
Yeah, tropical.
The Indian, I would say, fashion industry has really gone up a notch. At least in the last couple of years, we are getting much closer to the fashion that's available abroad.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see brands go global. So we spoke of a brand called Mufti. I love their product. I worked with them briefly, and about 2-3 years ago, the whole product base changed. They introduced this beautiful nylon spandex. They introduced great prints, great nylon rayons, hammered, crinkled fabrics, lightweight.
Variation in fabric, so many variations.
Beautiful outcome. I mean, the storeroom is not recognizable to me. Right? There's similar brands like Rare Rabbit popping up as well.
Rare Rabbit came into India and just completely disrupted the premium market space.
There was no fashion at that price. Whatever consumership happened was an international guy with a logo. So somewhere consumers have become brand agnostic and product centric. And this happens with any nation as it develops, is people start to look for utility in the garment. Ki main kharid raha to mujhe mil kya raha hai. For example, there's so many brands I can name, but there's a particular one that comes to mind there's a brand called Barber. It's a jacket brand based out of UK. Premium jackets meant for people who go out in the rain, in the wet British terrain and
Okay, this is for like hikes and stuff.
Yeah. But they created such a beautiful product with that they've been able to build a brand. Right? It's utility centric. It wasn't that the larger Ralph Laurens and the CKs were not doing jackets. It's just someone came in and actually provided utility to the customer that they were able to extract. So they said, okay, great, this is something I can validate.
This is something that they found a proper target customer, that people aren't serving this hiking or that particular customer correctly. I'm going to serve them and I'm going to give them the best available for them.
So we spoke about product utility. There's a counter side to the story as well, which is branding and marketing, which is, if you were to look at like a Lacoste, for example. So Lacoste was a French tennis player. René Lacoste is a French guy who used to play tennis, and he was called the alligator because of the way he swung the racket. He was a bit short-handed.
Hence the logo is an alligator.
Okay. And he was the first one to wear a polo and in any mainstream event while playing tennis. Before that was t-shirts. Just round neck t-shirts. That's where it became a trend. So again, he created a niche and then grew out. A lot of the retail counters where I see product become very generic. Finding hyper niche products and scaling those up, that's where the fun is, man. If you look at most of the counters, they always demand, give me jeans, give me t-shirts, give me everything. The retail, as for me, should become hyper-specific product pockets. Stitched together, like an aggregator of hyper-specific products. We got the best formal brand. Come, if you want a formal, go to that end of the store and buy that. If you want a chino, go there and buy that. If you want a casual shirt, go there and buy that. So that really allows products to be more honest with the customer. And it also reduces wastage in the supply chain. You're not producing everything just for the sake of a counter.
Right.
You're producing hyper-specific product that's guaranteed to sort of sell through a bit more.
So as we've been talking about trends, on Instagram especially, I've been seeing this trend of quiet luxury, old money style, what people are calling it. What is this exactly?
It's all about subtle pastels, about not standing out. It's about blending in so seamlessly that you're comfortable in your own skin, yet people notice you. Classic silhouettes, classic checks, solids. Old money aesthetic is something brands don't mimic very well because it's not about advertising your logo.
It's not about advertising. It's quiet. There's hardly any logo visible.
There's no placement, no embellishment, no metal item, no storyline, nothing. It's a garment, but a garment done well.
That means they're focusing on the fabric quality?
Fabric quality, construction, and feel. Yes. guess.
They're focusing more on that versus displaying the brand and making it highly fashionable, like a crazy print or something like that.
Correct. The inspiration for the materials comes from sort of the exclusivity of whatever's available. So back in the day, checks as a thing. Ralph Lauren has these crazy green and blue checks. Or Burberry has this Burberry checks, which is classic, one contrast red stripe. The idea being that back in the day, before everything became mainstream and there was an abundance culture that came in, there was not much you could do in terms of supply chain. Whatever the capabilities were. So checks of that nature were very small as a production run. Not a lot of people could produce it, so there were limited availabilities. So Burberry was able to create a hype around it. It was an exclusive material. The Burberry checks became a thing. Same with Ralph Lauren doing that purple grindle. So grindle fabric bolte hai. So that's a very different type of yarn that was difficult to do. It still is expensive to do, but it's more easily available now. Exclusivity of material availability is something that determines what goes into quiet luxury.
Do you think that exclusivity of material available has changed now, that materials are generally available because of technology?
Yes, I would imagine so. As you rightly said, everything's available now.
Because of, now we can ship something from here all the way to the US very quickly if you want to, or from China to Canada.
So old money aesthetic would then just be another trend, I guess. There's a resurgence of an old...
Yeah, because if the fabrics are theoretically available because of technology, maybe they weren't available 20 years ago, it was very expensive to produce. If they are available because maybe massive factories in China are producing this fabric.
Let's consider, I guess a good case study here would be like old money aesthetic brands.
Would Massimo Dutti be old money aesthetic?
They mimic Loro Piana. Zara is to high street, same way as Massimo is to Loro, is how I put it. Loro is old money because they still produce a lot of the exclusive wools that shear from very specific type of sheep, and there's still a hype around it for that.
So wool makes sense because it is expensive, because it comes from sheep and stuff. For an Indian context, most of the country is hot.
What is old money? That's a good question again.
So wool would not be relevant for,
No,
except for, let's say, maybe Kashmir. But if wool isn't a thing in India, it is in the West, it does get cold.
There's a utility-driven case here for consumption. That old money in the whatever royalty back then used to wear their wools and everything, it was exclusively sheared for them. And that's where it trickled down and became like old money aesthetic product and mass eventually. In India, we had what? We have our Nehru cap, our khadis. Our khadi's natural fiber. It's of the same family of sort of a hemp or linen, but more cotton-centric in that you take up all the entire plant for the cotton harvest, not just the bushel. You take the entire thing up and you use the entire stem and everything that comes with it to spin a yarn. That's khadis.
Hand done.
Hand done. So back in the day, Gandhiji ka jo charka tha, that was actually for khadi. Gandhiji's dream was that every house will be a yarn spinner and make revenue through the yarn. So khadi came from that because obviously they didn't have technology back then. They weren't just processing the cotton, they were processing the whole plant.
What makes that different from the regular cotton?
From the industry, I would say I believe in progress. I believe in technology advancing things for a reason. So the current form of cotton is good. What you have with the old khadi is a lot of impurity.
Okay.
And a roughness to it.
Okay.
It has a different aesthetic and a vibe, but it's not necessarily better, at least in my...
Okay, from a functional perspective, it's not necessarily better.
Yeah, because you're picking the whole plant, not just the bushel on top.
And you can't scale this. Like, you can't give it to the whole country.
You could.
Because it has to be hand done.
You could. No. Khadi can be spun in machines as well, I'm sure of that.
Okay.
It was hand done. I don't know if it would be accepted by the masses because somewhere if you wear a piece of clothing, you want to be comfortable and you don't want to itch or...
So that is an issue.
That's the issue. What do you think is the future of retail? Is it individual personalization, individual fashion for individual people?
I feel brands who figure out a way to catch on the trend and innovate, not in terms of fabrics, in terms of fashion generally, whether it's shorts or pants or shirts or t-shirts, they will succeed. And of course, if you offer it at a good price, I'm not saying it has to be expensive or cheap, depending on your target audience, they will take a chunk of the pie because this is a very competitive market.
Oh, yes.
And brands, I feel, who connect with consumers on a very human level. There was a brand that made certain t-shirts which were very quirky, very human, very minimal branding, but it was more the design of the t-shirt and they had some very nice sayings. It was encouraging, or it was like, oh, life's so hard, but I'm still trying. A lot of people feel that way. they're connecting. So Soul Store has got this niche of, they've got their Naruto and they've got their mangas and, all that kind of stuff. Batman, Iron Man. A lot of fans connect with that stuff. Maybe that's one of the reasons of their success. I feel if brands connect or create stories within their brand that connects with their audience, they'll find success.
Personalization is very
Personalization through stories, through what's happening in the world at the time. People, I think, want something that's unique.
Yep.
I don't think anyone wants to go out and be like, everyone's got the same shirt. Everyone wants to be special. Everyone wants a compliment like, wow, that's a beautiful shirt. Where have you gotten this? So brand loyalties are going down, but there's an open space for innovation. Whoever innovates will take a chunk of the pie. I do feel also that the women's space is empty. I think it's the most challenging space.
Really?
Western wear, organized market. If you want to buy a nice dress, even if you want to buy some nice lingerie, there aren't a lot of brands offering this in India. If my mom wants to buy something, she does not have unlimited choice. She has to run around the entire market, run around
find something.
So many stores to find one piece that she likes.
Women are good consumers.
But that's an opportunity. If whoever solves that issue is definitely going to succeed. Like whoever solved the issue of, I want a Coca-Cola delivered to my house in 10 minutes. There are people who have solved this issue and they are doing very well.
Debatably so, but I take your point.
At least the customers are happy. You don't want to go to the shop to buy one Coca-Cola. Fine, someone will bring it to you. So if someone figures out a way to make really good merchandise in women's, Western, they are going to succeed. It's very interesting that a manufacturing facility or maybe other manufacturers too are changing their focus from export to domestic, showing how much potential there is. Do you think this is because consumption has increased?
India's consumption story is very well lauded, and we are a quickly growing nation. We're sitting at a good $2,700 GDP per capita. And this is where sort of the network effects of the economy kick in and consumption really takes off. But at the same time, we're seeing a really strong income inequality set in. So consumption patterns are very split. And barely, this is what I attribute to the rise of fast fashion as well, right? Is that you have such high income inequality, but it's still an appetite to consume, that all the consumption has been sort of polarized to two pockets, which is extremely premium and extremely functional. And that's where you've seen the death of mid-premium sort of occur, or at least mid-premium losing their footing.
What would you say is a super premium brand and one which is the other extreme of that, like right now in the market?
Yeah, D-Mart is the other end of the spectrum. It is the budget option for anybody looking for a piece of garmenting. 200, 300 rupees and you get a shirt. Unbeatable. And then when it comes to premium, I would of course put Tommy CK up there as sort of upper mid-premium. And then of course you have boutique brands that come in and take up that chain. But menswear really doesn't have a lot of boutique brands.
I would say boutique hasn't really kicked off in men's much, at least at scale. Maybe there's one shop in Bombay or one in Delhi. For women, on the other hand, it has kicked off.
I can't blame people for not trying, because we're very functional consumers as men.
Yeah.
We don't really look for any variation. If the colors could be better, right?
I was chatting with someone yesterday and he was telling me that he goes shopping with his wife. His wife takes hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and she'll try everything. I'm sure every woman isn't like this. So he told his wife, he was with his kids, look, you stay here, you shop, me and the kids are going to watch a movie, and then we'll come back and then we'll finalize whatever you've picked. And then they went, they watched the movie, they came back and they spent another hour.
Oh, still? Okay.
Another hour after the movie. For a man, it's like, let's go to the shop, let's try it on. If you like it, okay, just give me 2 or 3 other colors. Within an hour, max, we're done.
Yeah, we're very functional consumers. We know what we're looking for. We know what we want to wear. Although that is changing ever so slightly, with money sort of shifting downstream. Before, primarily the consumption in India was above 35.
People like
worked for 20 years and then sort of came.
And then you had the money to buy stuff.
And now that money sort of moved to 25. What's most interesting about this is, I was thinking about this the other day. So what was the first piece of garment you ever bought?
T-shirt, a bandana.
Oh, bandana's a good one.
I used to have a little longer hair than this, so I used to wear a bandana sometimes.
It's very hot to sleep with. I don't know how you do it. I had hair down to here. I could not.
What?
I had to chop it all off. It gets very hot with the bed. I just couldn't do it, especially in Dubai. It's crazy. So for me, the first piece of garment actually was my undergarment. Right? And the story with that was, my mom would always come up to me and like oh yeah, your undergarments have gotten holes. I can see it. And she'd hold it up in front of me like, you don't need to do this. But okay, no, we need to go buy a new one. And she dragged me. And then at the counter when we're buying stuff, she's like, no, don't get white. It'll stain. I'm like, oh, stop, please stop. Please stop. Okay.
I'm the one who has to wear it.
No, sir, but I have to wash it. So I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're going to have to wash it.
So then I'm like, okay, cool. Let me buy my own stuff and just stay out of it, right? And that happened to me when I was 15 or 16. From 15 is where you first get the experience of walking into a retail counter, picking your first piece of garment out, trying it, or in undergarments, not trying it, and hearing the salesman say, try nahi kar sakte. And then still figuring out, ki bhai, will I fit into medium? I can't return this. So then that confidence of purchasing comes in. And that's when you start to build a purchase history. Now, previously till 35, you would have disposable income where you could buy 1 or 2 garments every year and feel fresh or new. You're trying new things, but in a limited capacity. By 35, your preferences are set. So when you come into some real money and start purchasing for you and your family as an extension, you know what to buy. You know that, okay, I know LP is good, or US Polo is amazing, or I know Indian pants are fantastic. And you know because you've tried.
You've tried it on, you've tested the product.
Exactly.
And then, of course, once you've fallen in love with a brand, you will probably be loyal to the brand unless something goes wrong. Or maybe your style changes. It could happen that a brand has got a certain style and you as a person might change your style.
And then you just...
As you get older, your style can change.
Right.
It happens. Or the brand changes their style.
Right.
Which can also happen.
Yeah. Right. So that's precisely it, that transition. So you build a purchase history, right, from 15 to 35, and now you know what you want. So when you're money, okay, I know I'm going to buy 3 shirts of LP for my office, and I love the Indian trousers, so I'm going to buy 2 of these or whatever. When you're 25 and you come into money, you don't have a purchase background or you don't have a history of buying. You're new to stuff. You're getting bombarded with ads on Insta.
Yeah, nowadays it's complicated. You're getting bombarded with so many Insta ads, online brands which are not present physically, which you have no clue what the size is going to be like.
Exactly.
Because it's just like you've never tried on their size. You can't go try it on.
But people are still taking the leap of faith. That's where this disruption has happened largely over the past 5-10 years again, is sort of historical brands have not been able to play the digital game very well. Or rather capture the new consumers as how
the new consumers, the young consumers who are maybe sitting in the office, they got a 10-minute break, they're like, I need a shirt, let me just browse what's online.
This is a very interesting transition point we are in terms of the larger, grander context of consumption, is that online has just been there for 10 years, 12 years?
I mean, significantly in the last 5 years.
5 years.
With the rise of this UPI and all this stuff, and that pay later concept, people have the money to buy now, pay later. But also UPI has made it easy to transact online, even without a credit card or a debit card.
In these 5 years, we've not even seen the entire ecosystem play out yet.
True.
And we're still new to it. It's only been 5 years. So that cycle is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, how the larger brands adapt to it. And of course, how newer brands make their spaces. Plenty of brands have. You've got the Snitches of the world.
With the rise of fashion, I guess, in the last few years, starting off with Zudio, kicking off the ball.
And this goes back again to the nature of the consumer. So there's been a big change in consumership. This is where we currently sit. I see that in my supply chain as well with manufacturing, where we've become breadth first and depth less. So we've gone breadth first as well. All the brands have reduced their quantums. They're going larger on the offerings, less deep on the volume. So there's a structural change, and again, online is a huge attribution to that.
Does this put the fact that they're spreading their breadth rather than going heavy in terms of quantity? For the audience, this basically means like instead of producing, let's say, 1,000 pieces in one shirt, doing 10 shirts with 100 each. Does this affect the supply chain or the factories?
Oh, yes. Before I was able to, I would say up until even 3-4 years back, pre-COVID, the quantums are strong. I was able to run my factory somewhat efficiently. But now with the variation from style to style, I have to reset the batch. And as you saw, everything is manual. The way a coin pocket is created, and if the styling of the coin pocket changes from this fabric to that fabric, it creates a huge burden where the labor has to be retained on how to place it, how to finish it. And that cost is somewhere lost in communication. But hopefully, things normalize soon.
So it's also a matter of communicating to the brand that, hey, if you want these variations, it's going to increase your cost by so-and-so number because of these variations.
Absolutely. Brands have been largely supportive. It's not that they do understand, but with the disruption of Zudio and XYZ players again, they're very disturbed. The market's a bit flustered and everybody's trying to find their footing. So taking on an increment in COGS is not something they're able to do very naturally. But the larger brands that are adapting fast are able to pass it on to us. Yeah.
What do you mean by COGS? A lot of people don't know what this means.
So COGS is cost of goods sold. It's essentially your cost of materials, your raw material cost, plus any value add you've done on it. So for a brand, COGS would be the cost of the garment they buy from me, plus whatever XYZ license fee and warehousing fee they add on as a service. The rest is external. So that's what COGS is.
The end price that people often see as a consumer, they might see a shirt for 3,000, 4,000, and they think, oh my God, this is so expensive. They're not realizing the amount of cost, the amount of people in between, and the work that's involved to get that product to the store.
And again, that's why the online disruption comes in. It's because we've had this is a channel disruption to some level, right? What's ended up happening is you've had traditional channels where we push the inventory to different cities, and then people would go and visit this centralized point in the city, be it a store or a whatever, and they buy stuff. Now it's online. It's one-to-one shipment where it goes from the warehouse to your home. The channel costs have somewhere been disrupted, but also there's a big logistic burden added on because I'm not shipping out in bulk. So this is what's disturbed the market.
And there's a lot of returns. I can't predict my size with every single brand perfectly. If I like a t-shirt online, I've made mistakes where I bought a medium because it looked like the medium would fit me, and then I had to return it and then wait for the large to come, and then the large fits. Or sometimes I don't even like it once I've tried it on. I didn't like the fabric or the color or whatever, which I cannot tell online.
You've also had a beautiful history with retail. I'd be quite curious to see all the points we discussed. What do you think is the next step?
At least what we see in the store is any human being, they'll go to the store, they are going to try on the garment. They're going to show it to their wife or their kid or their friend or their father or mother, whoever is there with them. And they will look at themselves in the mirror to see, does this fit well? Is it a little tight? Is it a little loose?
So you're saying the tactile part of it still...
That whole part, that whole experience of figuring out, do I want this or not? It looks best in the store. You have lights, you have mirrors, you feel great.
Have you seen any transformations in consumer sort of patterns?
So the returns are very less. The returns are almost negligent.
Because it's obviously
You've felt it, you've tried it, you've shown it, you've gotten yes from your wife or no, this doesn't suit you, please change again. And
always get your wife's approval.
Your wife has to, that's the number one person who has to say yes. The returns is obviously a big issue for
online.
Yeah. I know off the bat it's like around 30%, 40%.
Oh yeah, 30, 40%.
Which is a huge amount of return if you're thinking about the cost to send the good, the cost to bring it back. Plus, there is a little bit of things that are happening within the country where the wrong item goes back.
Oh man, I have so many stories. I don't even know where to begin. So when we started off online ourselves,
this is about you started a brand.
Yeah, so we have a small label called Thinc that we launched in-house as well, where we're aiming to provide a direct factory to retail floor perspective with high value. Essentially, we're looking to provide premium fabrics, premium constructs, premium silhouettes at a cost which you would not find otherwise. We started this brand and then we went online. And I'd see weird things where you would have 30-40% return rates. But then every now and then there'd be this one piece where you send out a beautiful 60s, 100% linen digitally printed shirt, which is worth like 3,000 rupees. The fabric price itself is 800 rupees a meter. And what you get back is a stinky underwear. And I'd be yelling at my warehouse, like, how did this happen?
Yeah, how did this happen? Yeah.
And they're like, so we had no choice. The guy came, dropped it off. I'm just sitting there wondering about that you left raising tickets on XYZ portal. It's just...
Because this is at least in India, this is a very difficult challenge to solve.
It is, but it's also very insightful as to what the customer is. Our customers are value hunters. I think that's the Indian customer.
That's the Indian customer. Our culture is like, get the best value for our money.
It's like aam ka gutli nikala, wo bhi choose ki you get every last drop out of it. And that's when they feel happy.
That's when they're like, I've succeeded. My mission is complete.
It's complete. It's not about the utility they get from the last drop. It's the fact that, yes, I hold the power to suck this man dry. Creating services for Indian consumers is very difficult. Very difficult.
Very challenging. You do everything in your power to satisfy them, and sometimes it's not enough.
And that's where you have to accept that you can't keep everyone happy. You must go ahead with your identity and sort of build something worth savoring. And you'll find people who eventually see the value in it.
And there are lots of good consumers, good customers who They come, they buy, they're happy with the product because you've given them a beautiful product.
Oh, and that's true as well. So that's sort of the duality again, going back to the polarized India, right? You have your premium customers and you have those sort of value hunters.
The Zudios and Snitches, the wonderful thing is they've made a premium shopping experience available to the masses, which is wonderful. And people can just go in and buy a shirt, a jeans, whatever. How long is this going to last you?
That's very true as well, actually.
Because they're giving it at very, very low prices, which is great because everyone can afford it. But then what happens after you wash it and after one wash, it's terrible. You're just like, you might not want to wear it again.
But the amazing part is they do return back to Zudio. Even though they've seen the life cycle of the garment be short, they somehow end up going back. But that's what I want to really try to understand is you have what traditionally we call A+ counter in retail. So how do you see the difference with your customer and let's say a Zudio?
I would say they're different customers. That's the entry point for a person in the country who wants to buy from a brand. Before, what I'm thinking is, if you wanted something sasta, something cheap, you'd go to the market. Table pe, pada rehta tha, you would select a t-shirt, you'd try to find your size. You'll find something that you like and you'll go. You'll be like, okay. You'll know the guy personally. He'll give you some 10%, 5% discount.
Personal service.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like a shop where it's air conditioned, beautiful lights, lots of trial rooms, mirrors. It's democratizing the fashion industry. That's your starting point. Like you start there, but as you develop as a person, your taste might change.
So you might premiumize. Formalization of the market. What Zudio's done.
What Zudio's done. They've premiumized the experience even for the one who is a low budget customer. It's a nice way if you want to start. You just want a shirt, you just go to Zudio or H&M or whatever, you'll find a shirt which is very cheap. Button might fall off in an hour. That's a different story altogether. This happened with a friend of mine when we bought a shirt literally for the wedding. Within an hour, one button broke. He got a shirt for a one-time use.
As you touched upon quality, I have to give it to the mid-premium brands in India. Having been an exporter as well, the Indian brands, the way the fervor and the attention to quality is there, I've not seen anything like it. So just going back to the example of the button, what we do with every single garment is we do a GPT, so a garment performance test. Every time we produce something before we make it, we take the bulk fabric and we put it in a test, where the test has multiple parameters, everything from a button pull test to the fusing to the wash, shrinkage post-wash is well controlled. So the customer at the end gets a good product. In fact, I would go as far as to say Indian mid-premium market is truly a value proposition globally. The likes of brands like US Polo, Indian Train, Mufti, Rare Rabbit even, the sort of garments they provide for the price they do is not something you'd find globally. And the attention to quality is so well taken care of. I never saw this in export either. When I was doing sort of Zara, Stradivarius, XYZ, they have sort of integrated a lot of these things in as well. And they do have their own strengths. But the breadth of the fabrics and the variability at which Indian brands execute, domestic brands execute, I'm yet to see something like that.
What do you mean by fusing shrinkage?
So every garment you buy, it's a fabric that comes from a textile mill. It's then cut, sewn, and then packed. But within that packed garment is a fabric that's not yet shrunk. Clothes shrink. I'm sure that a lot of customers have gone through this issue.
Yeah.
So what we do is we pre-wash all our garments and we make sure that the bulk of the shrinkage is taken care of before we ship it out to you.
So basically, any fabric, it will shrink?
Not any, but most fabrics.
Most fabrics will shrink. That is just the nature of fabric.
Correct.
So to minimize shrinkage, you wash it so that it shrinks already, and then afterwards, once the customer buys it and washes it, it's almost negligible.
So you don't want the customer buying a large and then becoming a medium, right? That's a huge problem. It also damages the self-perception of the customer where they feel like they've gained weight, which is a psychological barrier, right?
They're like, this used to be this long, it's became this short.
Yeah.
What happened?
So brands really take care of that well in India. With the likes of all the brands we have the privilege of servicing, the norms are so well defined that we've also learned a lot working with them. And this is where I would say the Indian customer really has a lot of valuable options out there. And of course, Thinc is going to join that run.
A lot of customers actually do ask us, surprisingly, in the store, if this will shrink. Because, it's really great you touched upon that so that we can also explain to them that everything generally comes pre-washed.
Not everything, to be very honest. For example, formal shirts, satin shirts. There's a big craze for that.
Yeah.
So satin shirts are all about the sheen. Anytime you naturally wash it or do an industrial wash on it, the shine goes away. brands tend to not wash satin shirts.
Then what
Satin
about
shirts
shrinkage?
generally do have a slight shrinkage. So the way I always recommend tackling it is we make sure that the dimensions are slightly larger itself before shipping it out, because we know it's going to shrink.
Because we know it's going to shrink, and we know that there's a certain percentage it will shrink.
Of give, yeah.
This is a good topic for us to go into what you meant by the premium brands, mid-premium, and the economy brands.
So this is sort of just how I was wondering, trying to map the Indian sort of ecosystem.
Because we have a ton of brands in India.
So many.
At least in the men's segment, there's more than enough choice for everyone.
So I was trying to figure out how to perceive these brands, right? How do I classify them and really break them down? And that's when I sort of decided to do like a fashion versus functional and economy versus premium. So the economy premium would speak to the pricing of the brand. Fashion functional speaks to the nature of the product.
How fashionable versus how standardized.
How standardized functional it is. Right?
Functional.
So for example, someone like a Linen Club is extremely functional. They're linen-centric. Fantastic shirts. They do great product, but they're linen-centric. So they're more on the functional side, and they're a very premium brand.
Because linen is an expensive fabric.
It's an expensive fabric, correct. Whereas someone like a Zara, for instance, they're a fashion-focused brand. They're all about quick churn, new styling, new silhouettes, new colors.
Lots of styles, lots of new colors, fabrics.
That's how I decided to decide to map it and really break down the market. The fashion ecosystem is largely driven on cycles. These cycles range anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. 3 months, 2 years, yes.
It's a very long cycle. Yeah.
So 2 years are the larger cycles of consumption with what type of garments were.
Okay.
For instance, post-COVID, we saw a huge drop in formal wear because the consumption trend changed. And then again, it sort of resurged again last year.
Again, yeah.
So those 2 year cycles.
Because people started going back to the office.
Going back to the office, or there were more functions that they would attend. There was more formality to meetings that crept in. So these 2 or 3 year cycles are defined by larger socio-economic sort of trends. Just to touch briefly upon that socio-economic trend, if you see a brand like Balenciaga, very premium. But if you see their latest collection, they're literally selling you a garbage man's utility vest and like ripped shoes that are torn and shredded. It's because in the West, income inequality is actually growing faster than India. And as that is happening, the rich and ostentatious and are very conscious about the consumption and they don't want to flaunt it. They still want to consume, but they don't want to be outright about, look, I wear this or I am this, right? So what do is they low-key try to mimic a blue-collar lifestyle. So that's why you saw that utility vest come in, because it's literally a mockery of the, the common man. And these are the larger cycles that play off for 3 years, 4 years. And I'm sure as the trend changes, something new is going to come in. And coming to the 3 month cycles, these are more color driven, silhouette driven, what's new, what's not, fads, so to speak. So if you were to sort of break things down, the companies that are more fashionable, sort of the ones here, I was looking from it. Now these guys tend to be attuned to more disrupted sort of trends and cycles, right?
Okay.
As the cycles change, they have to pivot fast. If they don't release something new, if they don't keep up with the market.
So they're the ones who are on trend, basically. As the trend changes, example, when Barbie came out, pink. If it's baggy jeans, they've got baggy jeans. Like fastest in the market to have those baggy jeans.
Correct. So these are usually what I would call the trendsetters. These are the ones that are always pushing to introduce new
trends.
And then right below that is you have somewhere between the fashion and functional. This is where the bulk of the brands operate, because these brands don't have the luxury of constantly innovating and introducing new product into the market. Because if they continue, the costs are very high.
Yeah.
The inventory cycles are deadly, right? So what they do is they are slower to pivot. They'll see what the trendsetters have done well, and they'll mimic that over the course of, let's say, a 6 to 8 month period.
Got it.
So what Zara does is trend-setting, where they go to a runway Milan and see what's there, and within 3 months, it's on the
shop floor.
And then what like a larger brand like a Nautica or a CK would do is the trendsetters introduce 10 trends. These 2 sold well, I'll stick with that. And then, of course, you have the more functional consumership, which is stuff like sweaters and linens or 100% jeans. Or
your formal shirts. Shirts. Your white formal shirt is always going to be a white formal shirt.
Always, yeah.
It's rarely going to change much.
You can't do much innovation there. You could introduce a few new finishes in the fabrics, a few textures, maybe a new shape of a collar. But beyond that, there's not much room for innovation.
There is some room. I've seen a few brands do like wrinkle-free, unwrinkle, or non-iron.
So this is
like
also
that.
interesting, is wrinkle-free's been around for a long time. In fact, I have a lot of wrinkle-free shirts in my formal portfolio. It's just trends again, right?
Yeah.
What ends up happening is it's a new marketing fad you have to provide to stay relevant. So you need something to market. These technologies have been there for
a long time.
They just keep resurfacing every now and then as a new
It's a new thing. Yeah.
There's another way you could perhaps break down it is sort of on the x-axis here, talking about the pricing. Just to give you a brief sense of the price points in the context of the Indian markets, the red one right here is how I'd put 1800 to 3000.
Okay.
And this is sort of the 3000 plus segment. And this is again sub 1800, so about 500 to 1800 is that segment. So what we see is brands that are above the 3000 segment is a very limited addressable market, primarily because there's not much consumership there. It's very limited. It's the classic power law, right? 80-20 rule. 80% of the consumership still in India occurs below 1300 rupees. So these guys have a limited market.
Which is why brands like Zudio have grown so much, because that's where the massive number of people are who are able to buy.
Precisely. So it's a commoditization of the product more than any disruption. So that's what Zudio does well, is they've commoditized its hyper economies of scale, and they're able to scale fast. Because at that price, it's a steal, it's a bargain.
It's a steal. I don't think anyone in the world is offering that price.
Nobody's going to miss 800 rupees out of their wallet.
I mean, people spend more than that on a dinner.
We're in Bangalore right now. Taxi from airport to city center is 1500, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you could have bought 2 shirts from Zudio.
Yeah, to the factory it cost me 2,000. I could have bought, 2 jeans from Zudio.
2 jeans from Zudio, right? So that's.
I mean, taxis have become more expensive than Zudio.
Precisely, right? That's the context of consumption, right?
Yeah.
So in the end, if you want to build a good business in fashion, I would say it's all about building something that is defensible, a moat that you can protect. You don't want to build something that's susceptible to disruption, or you don't want to build something that can only thrive on operational excellence and you squeezing every inch of the business for every rupee, which is another way to do business, but that is at a latter point that comes after you've stabilized your growth. So what you see in sort of this segment, these are product disruptors. They are product-centric people versus sort of, in this sense, is more price-sensitive value disruptors. If you want to build a business in fashion, either pick one of these 2 lanes and then grow on from there on out. Eventually, I'm sure you'd cluster to the region here because you'd have to build a margin. But if you want to build a business in fashion, these are the regions I would want to start off with.
You spoke about Thinc. Where does Thinc stand within this space?
Oh man, Thinc's a nameless baby as of now, is how I'd put it, right? I haven't defined it yet. I'm very much of the mindset that I have so much to learn from you and from all the retailers out there and from the Indian markets that I'm just playing it close to the chest, and I'm really putting my ear to the ground and listening for feedback. And as I learn, I'm iterating fast. Yes, the goal very much would be to be somewhere in this segment. Medium fashion, but a mid-premium brand. I want to bring what you see with CK, Tommy, to that mid-premium price point.
Okay.
But I also want to iterate like a Zara and bring slightly trendy trends in. So we had a great run with our Korean pants.
Got a lot of good feedback from the customers that they were very comfortable.
That's the point, is we want to be disruptive, but not the trendsetter. We want to be cutting edge, but not bleeding edge. That's how I do it.
Yeah, the trendsetter is also a very risky space to be in. Not every brand can be a trendsetter. Brands have bled out trying to be trendsetters because humans are just unpredictable. So one day I've seen stuff in the store that one season, this is working amazing. And the next season, it's so bad.
Yeah.
No one predicted that would happen.
Extrapolating into the future, like using one trend and extrapolating it out in fashion, never works. Because fashion's a cycle. Right? Fashion's a wave. It's the classic sine cosine wave, right? It's up and down and up and down. So if you're on the uptrend and then you predict that no, that's not going to happen.
No.
If on the downtrend, okay, this is how it's going. No, that's not going to happen. So you have to learn to ride the waves and just be on for the journey, essentially.
Well, that's what makes it so difficult. If a brand is able to predict, okay, this is the trend, and they can basically ride the wave by getting on the trend and getting that product in the store on time, basically hit the jackpot.
Oh, yeah.
If they've with the quality, of course, and the right price.
See, fashion's very downstream from culture. We had the rise of baggy post-COVID because people wanted to be comfortable. They wanted to move, walk around, XYZ. Now in India, the reason why a lot of at least that's my perspective, a lot of the baggy fits haven't caught on is because we don't move around in India. We don't have footpaths to walk. So what are you going to do? It's very car to car, journey to journey, location to location. You're not walking from XYZ place. There's no utility to comfort. The utility comes from pure looks in that case, and then you want to look slender. So slim still works very well here.
Okay, I've never thought about that. I just have been thinking it's going to take another 6 months before this catches on.
The youth has started walking around.
Yes.
So if you go to Brigade Road in Bangalore,
Yeah.
these guys are walking. So they are baggy and they wear like functional garments.
Yeah.
Similarly, India post independence, we never had a requirement for polyester as such. Even though they were the largest fiber manufacturers for polyester with Reliant, we still don't have good polyester in India. Why? Because we were a very functional economy coming out of independence. So imagine, like I said, we were not even at 2100 GDP, we were like 300 GDP per capita. So you had people struggling in buses, walking around trying to get to a job, trying to get to interviews. These guys were sweating all day in the sun, in the humidity with the crowd. You could not have polyester. The reason why polyester smells when you sweat is because when you sweat, you also have oils that come out of your body. The polyester is actually very good at dissipating the water, the moisture, but it's not good at dissipating the oil because polyester itself is an oil. It's a polymer.
It is a poly,
It's
yeah.
derived out of oil.
Oil, right.
So oil attracts oil and it pulls that body oil, and that body oil then conducts bacteria activity, which is what causes the smell. So people didn't want to smell. They would, even though they didn't want the sweat stains, they could not wear polyester because it would be smelly.
It's a hot country. They're working in hot conditions. Definitely not the kind of place you want to wear poly.
So we had cotton, we used cotton.
Yeah.
We never set up the production capabilities on the back end for polyester, which is changing now because, again, like I said, it's become very location to location, air conditioning to air condition.
Now, lots of brands are producing polyester stuff. I'm wearing polyester. Doesn't even feel like polyester.
Nylon rayon, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, probably.
Beautiful, yeah.
And everything is air conditioned. We are in places which are cooler, generally. And I feel people have accepted polyester because it is a nice fabric. There are qualities.
It's just the utility wasn't there before.
Yeah.
Now it is.
Now there is utility for it.
So
yes.
this is why catching fashion trends is difficult. You can't predict utility very easily. It's very difficult. Even for that matter, jeans as a thing was very sociological. The term blue collar came from jeans. Jeans is like, everybody wears it. We don't think about it as a rugged, laborious garment. We all think of it as fashion. Why is that? It's because post-independence again, with every financial cycle of our pseudo-capitalistic model in the world, income inequality has continued to rise globally. And as that has happened, people aren't able to consume what is true luxury. So people can't wear silk, people can't wear linens. They wear what is available to them, to the masses. That's where the consumership for jeans came in, is high society somewhere thought, let me mimic low society, because again, there's a guilt with consumption because income inequality has risen. What do they wear? They wear jeans, they're blue collar. Okay, great, let me make it sort of fancy and make it seem like I've worked in the field. And that came from the fact that you had the whiskers and the scrap.
The whiskers, yeah.
What would happen when you sit? So I'm sitting currently, you can see crease marks on my pant. That's where the whiskers come from the jeans.
Automatically, because the indigo would bleed.
Bleed, because it's folded and that creases the garment. Or when I'm on the field and I bend down and I'm on my knee, that causes the fading.
The fading. And it would get torn over here. Like
sometimes.
How my jeans are torn on purpose. That would actually happen.
Exactly.
People who would work in labor or in the fields and the jeans would tear.
Exactly. So somewhere people were so in the 20s, this is the I would say jeans actually exploded in the 60s. There was a huge 60s financial crisis as well. So post that again, income inequality rose. People were guilty of like, oh no, we can't look like we are lavishly consuming. So they went towards consuming jeans and then that trickled down to the mass markets. Coming back to the point, it's all about catching these sociological trends and how that would reflect in your garmenting and fashion.
Right. I've recently been studying a little bit about manure, and they seem to be using a lot of AI systems to be able, at least what they're saying is, to get the trends in ethnic men's fashion right, region by region, city by city. Because India is very different. What sells in, let's say, Tamil Nadu, in terms of ethnic wear, the colors, the styles, might not be what sells in Punjab.
Oh, I see. There's a lot of regional consumership in India.
Do you think AI will be able to help us with this in the future, or maybe even now?
So I'll answer this in two parts. Number one is India is a very varied country. When we speak of, let's say, an Andhra versus a Punjab, the thigh size itself is different, as we discussed. The fit of the pant has to vary. So that's more merchandising. I think systems and data will definitely help reduce inventory wastage, because as we discussed, the thigh size being different and the consumership therefore being different, we'll start reflecting in the data.
We'll start understanding what fit is working where.
So you might start
at a better level than a human can understand, because our brain's just like this big. Like a machine can do things which we can never even imagine doing.
The data will start reflecting that. I don't know if AI would particularly be helpful in this industry. As you've seen, it's a very, very manual industry. The nature of the cycles are harmonic. They go up and down.
And very
and
unpredictable.
Up and down and unpredictable. So AI is good for extrapolating.
One mistake, you produce 10,000 pieces of a
you
garment which does not sell. What do brands do with this? Like, what happens?
You end up having to liquidate them below cost. And just
Generally
take
at
the
a
loss.
loss.
Just take the loss, yeah. Which is why inventory management is key. So another thing when we saw the graph is the larger brands, the reason why it's a tough business to do with a high fashion market is because you are constantly innovating. So you're constantly producing new inventory as well. And if you get caught in 2 bad cycles, that inventory kills you. Whereas with, let's say, a high fashion like a Zudio, they're constantly innovating, but they're innovating on the low end of the spectrum. So even if they liquidate, the loss is minimal, it's trivial.
Yeah.
Operating in high fashion at a premium cost, very few brands have done it right and sustained it. I've not seen one to this day, to be very honest. Nobody stayed up top for long. So the reality of the supply chain, people need to see what goes into garmenting. And capturing and bringing that to the forefront is really needed.
Thank you for joining us. Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Buy as many clothes as you can. Visit Tipsy Topsy. Look for Thinc. It's been a pleasure having you, and thanks for taking the time out.
I hope you have found this episode interesting. We've tried to bring you a lot of different ideas, topics, tried to cover a lot of different things about the fashion industry, about retail, about garments, cotton. This is your host, Damin from Tipsy Topsy, your one-stop shop for all your fashion needs.